nothing to do with this useless scum!
No, won't give! It's too strong!
Run, reach it. Bring up the wolf's head.
You're soldiers of Gondor! No matter what comes through that gate, you will stand your ground!
Good morning from the Batcave. It is Thursday. It is October 19th, 2023. And I'm going to talk to you guys about the Illuminati and the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians and the secret war for supremacy that happened in 1776, which basically it looks like the Jesuits won. They won this war, at least in Europe. And then that is going to basically bleed into Marxism versus capitalism in the Cold War, which pretty much takes us to the decade right before 9/11. And now we're in the global world order. I'm just going to make this make sense for you guys because it's not rocket science. The conspiracy is pretty open now, and most of what was secret for centuries is now published. So nobody cares anymore, okay? If you're on this quest to discover what's at the end of the rabbit hole, and you need to get all the proofs and the documents that it's New Age and that it's evil and blah blah blah, you're missing the point. Okay, a lot of people get on here and ask me questions about conspiracy theories and stuff. You're missing the point. History is much more transparent than that. What was secret is much more transparent than that. You have to understand the CIA will lie and murder and overthrow countries and then like 30 years later declassify it and be like, yeah, we did it. But everyone who would want revenge and raise an army and overthrow us is dead. So, they did that with Vietnam. And if the Lord would tarry another 20 years, they'll do that with 9/11. Okay? We know this. If they succeed in launching a one world government and that one world government seems like it's more equitable than this one, they'll be like, yeah, they'll start throwing out 9/11 as a good thing. Yeah, of course we did, for the greater good. You know, this is how these people operate. They shift the ethos. I mean, the American Revolution was just a straight up revolt by false Christians and Freemasons and Illuminati and crap like that. That was they abused and sometimes killed the true evangelical Christians, and it was mostly run by Calvinists. It was almost entirely Calvinists and Freemasons that ran the American Revolution. That's why people need to be afraid of Christendom 2.0, which is entirely led by Calvinists. Anyone who's talking Christian nationalism needs to realize this nation has always been in a state of revolt. It's a rebellious nation. It's a satanic nation, and at the leadership of that has been Calvinists. That's why they put a snake on their flag saying, "Don't tread on me." It's literally Satan saying, "Don't tread on me," to Jesus saying, "You'll tread on serpents and scorpions." And there's always been an occult, inside out, upside down, reverse antichrist movement within the Calvinists, because there was within the Catholics, there was within the Gnostics. Their God is evil. If you logically process the God of Calvinism, it's an evil being. It's a being who's like, I'm going to create people to torture them. Why? Because, well, they're evil. Why are they evil? Well, I made them evil. Now I'm going to torture them for it. He's if you've ever seen The Devil's Advocate with Al Pacino, where he says how God, gives us instincts and then puts all the rules in reverse because he's a sadist, he's describing Calvinism, okay? Because God didn't just put all the rules in reverse of our instincts. Because of sin, all the rules are in reverse of our instincts because of the fall. But Calvinists don't look at it like that. In fact, if you read Luther, and I went over this in Luther's Theologica Germanica, which he said influenced him more than anything but Augustine in the Bible, he flat out says, this book flat out says that God made Adam evil from the beginning. He equates free will with sin. He basically is saying Adam can only out of his free will sin. That's the only thing he can do without God controlling him. Okay, so fast forward into, I'm going to get you into some timelines that make this stuff make a lot of sense. It is not that hard, okay? So when you go through the Middle Ages, you got to remember, all of the royalty and all of the nobility throughout Europe have their royal authority from the Pope, okay? It gets really complicated, and there's a lot of them. But what you have is it starts with Pepin the Short and Charlemagne. Pepin the Short gets the title of the King of the Franks from the Pope. He wasn't the rightful King of the Franks. The King of the Franks was Clovis. And Clovis became a Catholic. And then his subjects started being Catholics after that. And then the popes basically worked with Pepin the Short, which is Charles Martel's son, to overthrow Clovis. And when he overthrew Clovis, he accepted the crown of King of the Franks from the Pope, which means if the Pope's the one coronating him, he's under the authority of the Pope. That's how that works. And of course, the Pope is pretty much deputizing him as an agent of the Roman Empire, which is why you're going to hear, if you go all the way to Napoleon, he's trying to start a new Roman Republic. Hitler's trying to start a new Roman Republic. They're not doing this in a vacuum. They're not just saying Rome's a good idea, so I'm going to start a Roman Republic. They understand Europe has always been under the authority of the Roman Republic because all its original nobility, which still exists and still has a lot of money and power, is under the authority of the Pope, and therefore it's under the authority of the Roman Empire because the Pope is under the authority of the Roman state. His title, the Pontifex Maximus, is the high priest of the state religion of Rome. And even though there's not a Roman emperor right now, and there's not an official Roman government, he still exists as an independent agent of the Roman state, and whatever he's making happen underneath him works up to that Caesar. So when somebody gets that power of Caesar, which is going to be Turkey, all that falls underneath them. All that authority spiritually falls underneath them because the Roman Empire never died. So anyways, throughout the Middle Ages, the Roman, you basically have two different intelligence networks going on in the church. One is going to be the monastic orders, and one is going to be the priesthood. And the priesthood, remember, everybody in the church gives confession, which means the priesthood has the dirt on literally everybody. And trust me, they're cataloging the important stuff, okay? They don't care if you swore at your mom. They don't care if you had a dirty thought about the neighbor's wife next door. But if you're Prince so-and-so of Bavaria or whatever, and they find out that you have had an affair with so-and-so's daughter that could start a war, well, they're going to catalog that. And they're going to use all this information. They're like the NSA. They have dirt on everybody, okay? And the popes are using this information throughout the Middle Ages to basically foster wars back and forth and succession. And what they're really doing is making sure nobody gets too powerful. That's why basically the Mongolian Empire is like one big thing, and then Russia takes over and it's one big thing again, and the Caliphate's like one big thing, and Chinese Empire is like one big thing. And Europe is like a bajillion little states, okay? I mean, like the biggest one is going to be the Franks because that's really who gave the popes the secular weight behind their claims of power. And so they're going to be number one. And then England is going to be number two. The Norman Kingdom of England is going to be number two. And that's Richard the Lionheart. That's the kingdom that started in 9/11. That's why they love the number 9/11, okay? And so these groups are going to compete for power in Europe, but the Holy Roman Empire and the Papal States and Italy and Sicily and all this stuff, these are a bunch of little kingdoms. Like if you were to look at a map of the Holy Roman Empire in the Middle Ages, it's literally, look, these are all these little principalities, and then Rome's going to have a Holy Roman emperor that's over it. But they don't really have total control over this thing. Watch how it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Well, what happens is through inheritance, different people are going to get these little fiefdoms. And in time, it basically it's almost like the church. It's actually a reflection of the church. In fact, feudalism is a reflection of the church. because the church would say that you don't have the freedom to just move to another place and join another church somewhere else. You need permission from your bishop to do that. Like a person couldn't just move. And so if you need permission from the bishop to move, well, guess what? There's feudalism. Now you're stuck where you live. Okay, and then they crown these guys who are lords over you, and there you go. There's your feudal lord. That's the church made feudalism, okay? And over time, this keeps getting more and more and more and more divided. And the papal states, I think, are right around here. Looks like this is German. The papal states are around here. But like some of these is like, there's the Kingdom of Poland, there's the Kingdom of Hungary. Those are decent-sized kingdoms, but they're under the Pope too. They all get their crowns from the Pope, okay? And then... So they would all go through these ceremonies where basically, and the Ottoman Empire would do this too. Or not the Ottoman Empire, but the Byzantine Empire would do this too. When the new emperors would get their crowns, because it stopped being the line of Constantine within like 100 years, when the new emperors would get their crowns, they would be crowned, they would have to do this ceremony where they like genuflect to the Bishop of Constantinople. So the church really started ruling over the Roman Empire pretty much the moment Constantine signed and gave the power of the patriarchy to them, because it's the official state religion of Rome now. It's the only legalized religion of Rome once you have Theophilus, which is like a grandson of Constantine. It's the official state religion of Rome. And basically now the line of Constantine is gone, and basically the emperors after it, because Julian the Apostate was the last Constantinian era, and look what happened to him, they'll say. And so after that, because the majority of the people in power are also Christian or Catholic, they're going to say that, the emperor's got to practice Catholicism. Of course, these emperors would increasingly come not from Rome. You'd find Armenians, and you would find sometimes they'd be Arabians. They'd be a bunch of different people. They'd just come out of the military, basically. And of course, they'd all be Christians because that was the state religion of the emperors before them. And they would all basically be genuflecting to the bishops and eventually the Pope. And so that's how they maintained the power of the Roman Empire. Okay, so it's all about who's in charge, like who. Well, if you don't have a hereditary succession that comes from the Roman state that is separate from the Christianity, they're all under the power of the Pope. Okay, so anyways. You have all these little states, and the popes want it broken up. They don't want it to be a big unified thing because they'll overthrow him. They'll realize there's this guy here, and that's why whenever you see Napoleon or Hitler or any of these guys try to take over all of Europe, they want to get rid of the Pope. They want to subjugate him, and you have popes that will die rather than give up that power, and you have popes that will no, we'll move to France for a while, and that happens during. The Avignon papacy, that's a 70-year, they call it the captivity, Babylonian captivity of the church. And it's going to happen during Napoleon's era. He's going to kidnap the Pope too. Okay, but then he has the Pope crown him emperor of the Roman Republic. And they started a rumor afterwards that he didn't, the Pope didn't crown him. He took the crown from the Pope. But the official story is no. He genuflected and the Pope crowned him, which means he's under the authority of Pope. And of course, what happens after that is Napoleon falls and the popes get back in power. And the Jesuits get back in power. So that's the story that you really want to understand. Okay? Now, throughout the Middle Ages, the popes are going to basically have the Crusader states. That is, when the popes started asserting themselves as the singular head of the church against the Bishop of Constantinople, that's when the Crusades start. And the reason is because all of these kingdoms, starting with the Franks, but it ended up being the German and the English kings too, between 800 and 1000. Okay, so you're going to remember the Frankish kingdom started. Charlemagne's version of the Holy Roman Empire started in the year 800. The Norman kingdom, which eventually conquered England, is started in 911. The Holy Roman Empire started around that time too. Okay, so those are your big principalities. Okay, but they're all under the Pope. And what the Pope does is, you have the Great Schism around 1054, And it's literally within I think it's within 20 years of that or something like that. It might be 50 years, but I think it's 20 years of that. And you need to pay attention to these timelines because they're so close together because it's politics. So right after he starts the Great Schism with Constantinople, that's when he starts sending the Crusaders out to go conquer Jerusalem and, free Constantinople from the Seljuk Turks, quote unquote. Of course, they're going to sack Constantinople because there's a fight where the people of Constantinople kill a bunch of Venetian Catholics, and then they're going to get revenge and they're going to sack Constantinople. And then they're just going to move on and they're going to start the Crusader states in the West, and that's going to basically be Damascus, Antioch, what's now Tyre and Sidon, so it's southern Lebanon, Beirut area, and then basically what's now Palestine, or Israel and Palestine. So that's going to be where the Crusader states are, and what it's all about really is about controlling the flow of the spice trade. Because these states are going to go all the way down to, this is the port of Aqaba, okay? In Israel it's called Elah, in Jordan it's called Aqaba. And from here you can send boats all the way to India and have the fastest, cheapest route to the spice trade, okay? And in Europe, well, spices are good because everything's bland. These spices don't grow there, okay? So what they're doing is they're getting the spices to Europe. There's good money in that because that's how we make our food good. We like to eat. And so this is what the Roman Emperor pulls off. But what it's really about is it's about the Roman Empire basically wielding the European monarchs as a single force. And of course, they all have their distinct kingdoms and ambitions and stuff like that. So they're fighting and betraying each other all the time too. But the popes are always in the mix and they're always privy to what's going on. And the popes are never trying to totally subjugate them or have one totally subjugate the other, because then they'll get too powerful, and the popes are always trying to maintain their own power. So they're very often manipulating the conflicts. So during the Crusader states, the popes allow this order to start, which is the Knights Templar. And they're not the only one. You have the Teutonic Knights, you have the Knights of John, the Hospitalators. And these knights are basically going to set up a route from Europe to these Crusader states and the holy sites, so they could do pilgrimages. Okay, just like the Muslims do the Hajj. Where do you think they got that from? Okay. This was going on since the days of Constantine. Constantine's mom supposedly discovered the original cross that Jesus was crucified on, and they built a temple in Jerusalem, or a church in Jerusalem to honor that. Basically, this happened at the Council of Nicaea. And so you have these superstitious Christians who are just the Muslims copied all their stuff from the Christians. Don't let anyone tell you they didn't. Everything. I mean, just look at them. It's like you got prayer beads. You've got praying 5 times a day. The Christians would pray 6 times a day. It's in Hippolytus's apostolic tradition. Okay, they would do everything the Muslims do, plus get up at midnight and pray. Okay, the pilgrimages, that they're just copying it all. Okay, so, and why wouldn't they copy it all? I mean, you've dominated the Roman Empire with a religion. Why wouldn't you try to copy that, right? So, anyways. These guys are basically going to form these orders, and the Teutonic Knights are actually going to have a state between Germany and Poland, and it's a pretty good-sized state, and they're going to have it for a while, because these monastic orders, sometimes they're going to be given fiefdoms by the Pope, and the Pope has pull over all these kings, because they can remove them too. They can be like, nope, you're not the king anymore, your brother's the king. The popes can do that, because everybody knows they got their coronation from the Pope, okay? And so the Knights Templar are going to end up becoming a network and a power unto themselves, because they just become famous. They're your Crusader Knights who have the big red cross on them, okay? So probably it would not shock me at all if there is some connection between the Red Cross and the Red Crescent and the Knights Templar. It would not shock me at all, because this is what they're known for. They had these red crosses, right? And I mean, if you're going to, like, look, if that's not the symbol of the Crusades, I don't know what is, okay? So these guys branded themselves. They wear white with red crosses, and they fight crusades, and they defend crusaders and pilgrims to the Holy Land, okay? These guys came up with the first international brand of mercenary. It's a corporation. And these guys end up with lands. They end up with income streams. They end up with, they get money from the people who stay in the castles and the hospitals and the hostels and stuff like that they set up. And then, of course, they take plunder from their military conquests as well. And so these guys are loaded, and it gets to the point where they have so much money that they're actually a rival, a legitimate rival to the popes and the French crown. Not because they have more money and power than them, but because they have access to information, and they have a network where they now have connections with all kinds of kings all over Europe, plus with Muslims, plus with Jews, plus with just merchants, like Venetian merchants. So they have connections, and they're basically Blackwater. And that's why Blackwater, which comes XE and now it's Academy, is it what it's called? Well, you guys need to understand, the reason they call it Academy is because Academy is the original Gnostic cult. Okay, this is the Academy. That was the name of Plato's school, is the Academy. Okay, and then basically the Academy becomes the Alexandrian school when it merges with Christianity of the Orthodox, and then it reemerges in the post-Reformation era as the university system, which is basically why you have all the Greek fraternities in it. Okay, the Greek fraternities are little mystery cults within the Academy. Okay, that's the Academy is the university system. And the Knights Templar, basically, once the Crusades kind of end, because all the Crusader states are going to fall to Saladin. Saladin pretty much kicks everyone's butts. And they try to get it back, and they fail. And Richard the Lionheart and his group are kind of like some of the last ones who try. They take some stuff, and then Richard, they start fighting amongst themselves, and you start having turmoil all over Europe. And then the Black Plague and all that stuff breaks out after that, and they kind of give up on the Crusader states. And Saladin basically takes them all back from him. And what you're going to have after this is going to be in the early 1300s. So it's like, I think it's like 1318 or something like that, okay? You're going to have King Philip of France. He owes a ton of money to the Templars, and he owes a ton of money to the Jews, because he has taken out loans from them. Remember, they've got all kinds of money now, okay? And what Philip of France is going to do is he's going to basically set up witch trials, basically, against the Templar Knights, say, accuse them of sodomy and secret societies and all this stuff. And the reality is they're all into this crap. The French are into this stuff, the Catholics are into this stuff, the Orthodox are into this stuff. I mean, they've had a celibate priesthood now for 1,000 years, almost, okay? You think there's not some buggery going on? You're crazy, okay? You think there's not some secret occult stuff going on? You're crazy. These people have been imbibing Gnosticism and keeping the old secret mysteries alive from the pre-Christian era for over 1,000 years. Once you started Christianity being the mandatory legal religion of Rome, but there's all this financial incentive. If you're like a gay person from the cult of Dionysus, the absolute most lucrative thing you can do is become a priest and become a monk, one of these things, right? Because you can keep living your lifestyle. You've got other people who are wink wink nudge nudge in the club with you, and everything's low key, and there you go. And then you have prestige in public. Oh, look how sanctimonious he is because he's got a shaved head and wears a robe. People are not that bright, okay? And so he accuses the Templar Knights of doing this, and common sense is like, these are warrior monks. Do you really think they're Jedis? Do you really think these are celibate Jedis who just do good and justice and control their emotions? And like, you are a violent killing machine, but you keep it in your pants. No. I'm sorry. Like, no. That energy is going somewhere. It's not just going to the battlefield. And they have a ton of money. And a big part of the network is not even warrior knights. A big part of the network is just administration for all the money and the lands and the resources that they have. And so King Philip of France basically gets them overthrown. He gets their order disbanded. And this is important because this is going to happen again with the Jesuits in the Napoleonic Wars, like 500 years later. Okay, so he gets them all disbanded, and he basically sees several of their leaders burn at the stake, and then the rest of them, who knows what happens to them? Well, they probably rounded some of them up and killed them. Other ones of them probably went into hiding. Okay. Well, where would you go into hiding? All of the kings of Europe are under the control of the Pope. All of them. And the biggest kingdom of them is France. And the majority of these knights would have come from places like France and Germany, where the popes have the most power. So where would they go? The answer is they went to Scotland. Okay? And so within, you're going to have within about 70 years of this, you're going to have this poem emerge called the Regis poem. And the Regis poem is the oldest manuscript that we know of that came from the Freemasons. And in short, the Regis poem is going to basically say how Euclid counterfeited geometry to basically create a means of employment for the Egyptian nobility after Egypt was conquered. Okay, so if you know your history, Alexander the Great conquers Egypt, and he takes over the Egyptian monarchy with a Greek monarchy now. That's the Ptolemaic dynasty, and that's going to last from Ptolemy down to Cleopatra. Okay, so you have for hundreds of years you have the Greek the Egyptian nobility is just ousted, and the Egyptian nobility. Remember, the Egyptians had all pretty much the best architectural structures. In fact, there's a lot of ancient history that suggests that the Greeks got all their architecture, even before Alexander, from the Egyptians. And the Egyptians originally colonized Greece, and then it was taken over in the Mycenaean era. The Minoans civilization was Egyptian. The Minoans are on Crete, and that's where the Philistines came from, and the Philistines are Egyptian. And so you had the Egyptians ruling Greece pretty much and colonizing Greece. And then eventually the Danites and the people who are now known as the Greeks, which are the Ionians, that's where the Greeks come from. And the Greeks were originally called by Homer the Dana, okay? Because the Danites were the main core of them. And then these other Ionian tribes eventually became the Greek culture. And the Ionian Greeks were more in Turkey. The Danites were more in what we call Greece now, okay? So, what you end up having now is the Egyptian nobility is without power. Their stuff was taken over by the Greeks, okay? And 20 years later, you have Euclid's geometry start to come out. Well, supposedly, according to the Freemasons, Euclid's geometry was basically taking the Egyptian architectural science and reducing it down to a succinct mathematical science so that those Egyptians could basically ply the trade of that Egyptian architectural knowledge all throughout the world. And what do you have all throughout the world after this? Pyramids emerging, obelisks emerging, okay? So, and of course, wherever Freemasonry goes, you see obelisks follow, okay? Well, what they're saying is this is the origin of Freemasonry, okay? It's the Egyptians, okay? And basically, Solomon's temple was built by the Egyptians, or they believe it was actually built by a foreman from Tyre who was a Danite, but the work crews were largely Egyptian, and the Egyptians helped out. This is the rumor. I don't know if the Bible actually teaches this, but Solomon had an Egyptian wife, and it would make sense that they got a lot of the Hebrews got a lot of their architectural knowledge from the Egyptians because they were in Egypt, right? So, and then Solomon, this is 500 years later, the king of Israel is married to an Egyptian princess. So anyways, this is the oldest artifact from the Freemasons. Well, it appears 70 years after the Templars in Scotland. Okay, after the Templars are disbanded. What also appears in Scotland are these legends and rumors about how Robert the Bruce had Templars assisting him in his attempts to get England free. Well, if you remember the story of William Wallace, which is going to be on Freedom, it's going to be Mel Gibson in the movie, what is that? Braveheart. Okay, this is about William Wallace. Okay, well, William Wallace is a Scottish guy who basically during this era, this is going to be in like the 1200s. Okay, this is going to be in the 1300s. So this is around the same era where the Templars are getting screwed. Okay, well, he is going to England and Scotland are going to be fighting, and England is going to be that Norman kingdom, and these are going to be the descendants between William the Conqueror and Richard the Lionheart. I'm trying to think. Yep, between him and Richard the Lionheart. Okay, and Mel Gibson is going to get pissed because they kill his wife, and he's going to overthrow basically the English in the north and get them to the point of suing for peace. But he's going to get betrayed, and he's going to end up getting his guts pulled out, and he's going to get drawn and quartered, and all that good stuff. And then basically Robert the Bruce is going to pick up the fight. Okay, and Robert the Bruce picks up the fight at the end of the movie, and all movies are based on absolute fact. There's nothing fictional in them. But there's several movies that are popping out about Robert the Bruce and how he was basically a guerrilla warrior essentially for some time, and he had some battles and stuff like that. And I don't think he ever got totally free from England, but because you have this independence conflict from England, this is a group of people who are not under the Pope. Okay, and so where are the Templars going to go? And remember, they're mercenaries. So where are they going to go? Well, here's some people who are fighting against the Normans who are under the Pope. Because the Normans are a mixture of Vikings and Frankish kings and Romans. That's literally where they're descended from. That's their genetic mixture, okay? And they're going to get their authority from the Pope, and they're going to conquer England. First, they're going to marry in with the Angles, and then they're going to conquer it. And these guys are going to resist up in Scotland because they were always resisting the English, because the Scottish are Picts. They are descended from the Irish and ultimately the Celts. So they are sons of Magog, and the Normans, the Vikings, are going to be, and the Angles are going to be descendants of Ashkenaz, which are going to be sons of Gomer, which is Magog's brother. So they're Japhethite tribes, but they're not. They're not cousins or anything. They're like very, 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 very distant second cousins. Okay, so anyways, they're going to fight, and Robert the Bruce is apparently, this is, again, we can't prove this absolutely, but this is what the people are saying, is that Knights Templar were helping Robert the Bruce. Well, they're not going to go around in their red, their Knights Templar garb when they're doing this, because they're in hiding. But they're mercenaries, and they're trained warriors, so they probably were. Okay, that's probably where they went. And within 70 years of this, that's when you have the Freemason stuff pop up, okay? So there's your origin story for the Freemasons. What it looks like is it's a combination of architectural guilds, which are in their core Egyptian, okay? The original science and the mysteries, so you're going to have a combination of Egyptian mystery cults and architectural science and geometry and things like that. It started with the Egyptian, and their secret societies and their guilds were all about maintaining the exclusivity of that knowledge so that the Egyptian nobility maintain a sense of power and can basically make sure that this is primarily for them. They remain the center core of these cults, okay? And of course, these people are going to eventually marry in with the Greeks and the English and all these other people, so they're not going to look Egyptian anymore. But that's where the original thing started, okay? And it started in Greece around Alexander's day, okay? So these guys have been the masters of architectural craft in Europe for, you're talking 300 BC to now 1300 BC, so 1600 years. And If you want to get some monumental castle or cathedral or temple or whatever built, you go to them. They know how it's done. They've got access to the labor pools. They know how to do this stuff. They know how to do the math to make it not fall down. You want these people, okay? And because you have Europe basically devolve into a class of gay clergy and warrior class Germanic peoples running everything, neither one of these guys are really high on the engineering sciences, okay? They're about killing and mobbing and about secret intrigues that are based on, grab ass in the monastery. And but what they're not about is higher education and tradecraft. Neither one of them are about that, okay? They've got blacksmiths who make swords and stuff like that, but they're not about much else, okay? And that's why the technology in Europe falls behind the Chinese and the Turks and the Arabs and the Indians. It all falls behind them because they've actually got a system where knowledge is kept under control. So you have the monasteries have all your ancient history and your mysteries and stuff like that. The Freemasons are basically your sciences. The popes are, your religion and your social engineering, and then the warrior class Franks are the military force, and it's kind of like a caste system, like what you have in India. Okay. Well, eventually the Reformation happens. So how does the Reformation happen? This is really simple, okay? Now, you had an organic Reformation starting with guys like Wycliffe and stuff like this, okay? And that was an organic Reformation, okay? Then you have a more intrigue-based Reformation, and this all starts with Constantinople getting sacked. And Constantinople gets sacked in it's like 1493 or something like that, okay? Late 1400s. So within how many years after this? This is within 25 years of this, the Reformation starts. Well, what happens? Well, simple. You already had people in Italy they're trading back and forth with Constantinople. They're getting back into the Greek philosophers more, and they're starting to question things in the Roman Church from the 1300s, okay? So you have 150 years of this. But then you have, and they know the popes are sleazy. They know the popes are lying, murdering, cheating, manipulating all the politics. People know this, okay, in Europe. This is not a mystery. This is just how it is. It's like saying, yeah, we know Washington, D.C. is corrupt. Of course. What are you going to do? Are you going to overthrow it? This is life in Europe, right? And you have basically Constantinople gets sacked, and of course Constantinople's on a seaport, so you have a bunch of scholars get scurried away by the Venetian merchants, and now they're in Europe. They come in through Italy, and the Venetians have a port right up in the armpit between Italy and Greece, okay? And so now they're spreading around Europe, in Bavaria and in Germany and in the Netherlands and stuff like that, places that have a little bit more freedom. And usually that's because you have big powers in between them that are competing for more supremacy, and that allows those gaps in between them to flourish more freedom and political revolt and stuff like that. And so Bavaria is going to be an important place. This is right up in what would now be Czechoslovakia. Okay, you're going to have a lot of drama come out of there. The Hussites are going to come out of there. The Illuminati are going to come out of there. Okay, and Bavaria is, you want to think they're kind of situated between the Germans and the Austrians and the Italians and the Swiss. And you have those people. The Swiss are very highly mercenarial. The Germans are very powerful. The Austrians are basically the higher nobility of the Holy Roman Empire. And of course, the Italians were the Pope is. Okay? And Bavaria, which is situated right in between that, is going to be pulling people who are on the outs with these other people into their culture. And so Czechoslovakia is a bunch of rebels, which is why it's like Pornhub capital now. It's just a place for rebels, okay? And the Bavarians are always going to get into the occult. They're always going to get into witchcraft to the present day. It's just like that. There's all kinds of mystery stuff that goes on there. And when you have the Reformation start to happen, remember, they're going to start getting all these influences from these Greek philosophers, and they're going to start to get into Aristotle. And Luther doesn't like that, and so Luther starts his revolt all around the defense of hyper-Augustinianism. Okay, that's really what it is. It's a Platonic hyper-Augustinian determinism. Okay, and the Catholic Reformation is more reasonable. It's more rational, and that's why you're going to have the Enlightenment kind of come out of that. Okay, the Calvinists and the Lutherans are really defending something which is closer to early Roman Catholicism than either later Catholicism or any of the other religions that are going to emerge from that. And what happens is in Germany gets super hardcore Augustinian, okay? Super combative, super oppressive of non-Lutheran stuff. And what's going to emerge in Germany, remember, these Orthodox are here, okay? These Orthodox are going to start the Rosicrucian cult. And the Rosicrucian cult is going to keep alive all the mystery religion stuff and all the philosophies that are not they're on the outs of the Germans and the Lutherans. That's going to be the Rosicrucians. And the Rosicrucians are going to start a mystery about how the original Rosicrucians were the guys who were converted by the Apostle Mark. They were Gnostics who were converted by the Apostle Mark. Okay? Well, why is that their mystery? Because that's where the Orthodox came from. Remember, the Alexandrian Academy, where Clement was openly espousing Gnosticism. Okay? You would have these people who get converted from Stoicism or Platonism to Christianity. Or what you might say is they didn't convert and they actually converted Christianity to Platonism and Stoicism, which is what actually happened. Okay? And these people are basically going to have this secret mystery that the Apostle Mark started by converting, it was like 12 Gnostics to Christianity. Well, what they're really trying to tell you is, like, we are the original Academy of Clement, and we're the people behind Origen and all that stuff. We're the Gnostics that infiltrated Christianity, okay? And they're going to start the fame of the Brotherhood of the Rosy Cross between 1610 and 1615. You know what's happening in 1618? Luther is starting to publish his public... He's already starting to publish, okay? But this is going to be, remember, the main things are going to be between Aristotelian and Platonic philosophy. That's going to be the main things that are contending in the Reformation. And these guys are just basically picking up, they're basically becoming a more overt Gnostic mystery cult. Okay? So it's kind of like more old school Gnosticism. And out of that, you get Hermeticism. And this Hermeticism, it's based in Hermeticism. So, Helena Blavatsky, Theosophy, all that stuff is going to come from this. This is the thread that comes from. The New Age, it's going to come from this, okay? So, I want you guys to think about this. You're going to trace a thread from the Egyptian mysteries and the Gnostics, because the Gnostics were before Christianity, into Orthodoxy, from Orthodoxy to Germany, from Germany to the Rosicrucians, and from the Rosicrucians to Helena Blavatsky and Alice Bailey and all these people, okay? It's literally the underbelly of Orthodoxy, which was always Gnostic, okay? So it's just the more hardcore version of it, okay? So there's the Gnostic. The Freemasons, remember, is based on Egyptian mysteries, more math and science based, and overthrowing governments, and they want revenge against the popes and the Frankish kings. This is important because of the Templars. What happened with the Templars is part of their agenda, okay? And so the Freemasons, this G stands for Gnosticism. They're Gnostic too. They're all Gnostic. And if you know what's going on, they're all openly Gnostic. And the Catholics are Gnostic too, and their version is going to be the Jesuits, okay? So think about these as like the KGB and the CIA and MI6 of their day, okay? It's literally what this is. These clubs, these mystery cults, are their intelligence apparatus, okay? Because remember, the Catholics had pretty much a monopoly on intelligence gathering. Now they don't. And now that they don't, you're going to have three groups that emerge to be the intelligence apparatuses. And the modern spy agencies the KGB, the MI6, the CIA, all these modern spy agencies directly connect to this stuff. Okay? They recruit from... Skull and Bones is a Freemason cult, and the CIA came from the Skull and Bones. Okay? This is literally what it is. It keeps advancing. And so what these are mystery cults, and it's all the mystery crap is about seeing if you can get someone to keep a secret. It's about finding out who can manipulate others and lie and keep secrets and live a double life. Okay? This is practice for becoming a spy. Okay? That's all the mystery cults are. They're practice for becoming a spy or a propagandist or somebody who's going to overthrow the government. Okay? It's practice. So you get these stupid young people who watch... I just saw a thing with like 20 kids on it who are like, they're in their 20s, and they literally grew up to National Treasure. And they're joining the Freemasons because of that. These are not your best and brightest. Most of them are pretty dumb. But you have people who join it who are pretty smart and or connected to money, okay? Your really smart people in the world are not joiners, okay? You have basically... The smart people who are in these are out to manipulate them, because these joiners are not the smartest people. Any Christian who would join this is like, okay, you obviously aren't reading your Bible, because this is a cult. And if you can't if you don't know what this compass and the square thing, this is literally like meant to represent male and female sexuality. This is Gnosticism. This is Gnosis. And this is it. Just read Parmenides' poem. Just read that one poem. It's been hanging around for thousands of years, and it talks about male and female sexual forces and a duality that manages the world, and it's bipolar, and there's fate controlling everything. Okay, well, that fate's going to reemerge as deism, and they're going to call it providence, which is basically Calvinistic fate. And this duality is going to reemerge as the historical dialectic, and it's eventually going to, it's going to crystallize in capitalism versus communism in the Cold War. Okay, it's the same game that has been being played. I mean, it's really satanic, but it's just how Satan manipulates people. He lies and manipulates people. He gets people to manipulate other people to feel like they're like higher up in the tier. And Satan is literally he's the Joker. And if you watch the Joker, Heath Ledger's Joker, and you watch the opening scene where it's like he's robbing a bank, and everybody who he uses to rob a bank kills the one, then kills the other, then kills the other, then kills the other, and then the Joker kills him. That's how Satan operates, okay? He's using you, he makes you think you're on the inside, and then he betrays you. Okay, why? Because he's only about himself. And what happens with Heath Ledger? Well, he gets demon-possessed from taking on that role, and he kills himself after this. Okay, why? Because he got possessed by the devil to be a better actor. That's what actors do. It's called method acting. It's been going on for centuries. Okay? And he paid the price for the fame. And people, this is his most acclaimed role, and he commits suicide after it. And he was warned by Jack Nicholson, who played the Joker, because the Joker is Satan. The Joker is Satan. He understands human nature, and he plays on the worst aspects of human nature, and he just wants to destroy. He's Satan, okay? And Batman is out to expose the Joker and what he's doing, but Batman is apparently equally crazy. Like, I don't mean to be the Batman. I'm just it was handed to me. I have to be the Batman. So, anyways, that's how Satan operates. And I mean, you'll find companies that operate like this. I used to work for a company, and the leaders of the managers of the company were just manipulating everybody to be against each other in the company because it made them more money. And I figured out their game, and I got sick of this crap, and I started talking to people, and I just started saying, "Is she bringing you in the office and telling you I don't want to work with you?" And she's like, "Yeah, she's bringing me in the office and telling me that you don't want to work with me." Yeah, like they're literally just stirring up discord. And I'm like, this is bullcrap. Like, yeah, this is nonstop manipulation. These people are claiming to be Christians. Well, when they knew I knew this, they literally bring me into the office as the owner and the manager of the company. And they're like, we know you get it, and we want you to be in the inner circle. Okay? That's phase 2 only stroke your ego and get you into the inner circle of our cult. This was a technical recruiting firm, okay? This is what they did to me. They tried to get me to join their inner circle. And I'm like, I don't want to join your inner circle because you guys keep lying to people. I just want to do my work. I want you guys to stop manipulating me and let me just do my work the way I feel fit. Because I said, I am not making any money the way you guys are doing this. You're not helping you. You're not helping me. Let me just follow my own business instincts and do my own work. And I did. And within 90 days of that, I was literally doing half of the work in their entire agency. The other 10 recruiters were doing the other half. That's literally what was happening. And I made them millions of dollars. And then I realized these people, then what they started doing is teaching everybody else how to steal my work. Okay? And so I was like, okay, I'm out of here. And basically they fired me. They chased me around with lawyers so I couldn't get another job. They got 3 jobs rescinded from me. And I ended up going to work for one of the clients that I got signed up for them, which just happened to be one of the biggest suppliers of conveyor systems to Amazon. And that just happened to be bought by Honeywell, which was a Fortune 50 company. And 2 years later, I'm recruiting VPs for Honeywell and then starting my own business. And I made $1 million in 4 years. Like, because I figured out the game. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Real smart people aren't joiners. Real smart people go and start their own businesses. Okay. They figure out how the game is played. And they don't just start their own businesses because they're greedy. Not always. A lot of cases, they start their own businesses because they're getting screwed. Because the people who have control of the business before them, like the popes and like these secret societies and stuff like this, they want to figure out how to keep everybody else down. They don't want to elevate other people. Okay? And so that's what I saw going on around me, and I realized it's everywhere in the business world. The business world, corporations operate like cults, okay? Which is why they're all trying to get you on the trans flag and all this stuff, and which is why the same stuff that goes into corporate total quality management came from the Nazis, and the same stuff they're now pouring, they've been pouring into churches and mega church growth and stuff like that for over 20 years. They've been pouring it into the mega churches, honestly, since the 80s with Robert Schuller. Robert Schuller got psychology from Norman Vincent Peale. He's a reformed minister, and he basically started applying business principles from Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker, okay? Peter Drucker is this guy who basically came up with corporate policies about isolating people into cells. And in case you don't know, that's the same language that terrorist groups and CIA agents and stuff like that use. They isolate people into cells and they make their cells compete against each other. And they make it all a thing where everybody is isolated from the big picture and producing in competition with other people. And they're just manipulating them like red team, blue team all over their company. And then they dissolve people and they fire people and they get people to screw each other over. And that's called total quality management. Or it's called Nazi control, Satanism. And this is how the world is operating now. The churches operate like this. The businesses operate like this. The governments operate like this. The terrorist groups operate like this. Because this world is under Satan's control. And they keep reorganizing on these principles. And it's just screw the guy next to you and you will pat you on the head and pretend that you're rising up the pyramid in the ranks with us, okay? And the reality is they're 13 tiers above you and they're just getting you to screw over other people, and the people who are at the top are never going to let you have a seat at that table. They're never going to let you have that seat at the table unless you prove that you can go start a competitive business to them and actually upend their game. Then they'll invite you to that table because that's another way to keep manipulating you. And that's why you have all these big business gurus who figure out how to make billions of dollars get invited to the Bilderbergers, and this is the new version of the Illuminati and all this stuff, okay? The Illuminati is not a thing anymore, but the idea of them is still a thing, okay? And all these new groups where these people get invited to the table is like, oh crap, you're smart enough to figure us out. We're going to invite you into the inner circle. Well, you're not in the inner circle. They're not in the inner circle. There's only one person in the inner circle, and that is Lucifer himself. And he's got a whole team of invisible dudes. He does not need your help, but he will manipulate you. If you'll manipulate 100 other people, that gives one of his demons free range to go do other stuff. That's called resource management, okay? So if he can get you to start pouring out satanic crap on a television set that's going to affect millions of people, he's going to invite you to quote unquote the inner table, the round table, the Arthur's Knights. You're going to be one of the big guys who are in control, and you're not in control of anything. You're not in control of anything. You're just being used to control other people to do evil, and you're just sinking yourself deeper in the hole to hell. Okay, there's no winning here. And Satan's going to use you, and he's going to stroke your ego to make you feel like, oh, but I got more money and power than those other guys, because that's the same thing the Pharisees did. The Pharisees did it. The Sadducees did it. The mystery cults did it. They all do the same thing. You're better than those other people. Don't you feel better? Yeah, okay. Now, you're a piece of crap compared to me, but you're better than those other people. Oh, I'm still a piece of crap? Yeah, but if you abuse those other people, I'll be happier with you. Well, wait a minute. Why are you deciding what makes me valuable? Reasons. After all, I'm in the club with all the people. Yeah, but aren't you all just manipulating each other like this? Who's manipulating all of you? Satan. See, until we all come under Christ, we all realize we're all just people. We're all just perfectly equal, and we're all sinners. That's the only way you can have peace and order. And you can still have org structure and leadership, but it's limited leadership. It's called what is it called? Opportunity cost. Okay? Now, your pastors in your church are supposed to be counselors. You're not supposed to have psychologists. You're supposed to have counselors, okay? These are people whose job is siphoned off to focus on the Word of God and prayer and counseling other people. How you doing? I can't have a full-time job, otherwise I don't have time to go check up on you and see how you're doing, okay? And we've got 100 people in this church, and we've got 3 pastors, and we've each got 30 families that we check in on and see how you're doing. How you doing? Well, someone is struggling with this. Well, let's pray. Let's counsel you. And they're just constantly counseling you in the truth. And it turns out because they're doing that, and then they also have wisdom from other people in the church because they're talking to other people and growing and gaining knowledge, and they're not using it to, pull dirt on people so they can manipulate them later. Oh, did you know so-and-so's a doctor? Yeah. Oh, do you know so-and-so's hiring? Yeah. And that's what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be a benevolent form of intelligence service to the church. And they spend a lot of time with God, and they're more accountable to God than you are, which means that's why a teacher incurs stricter judgment. They're more accountable to God than you are. But what happens in most churches? It seems like these pastors are less accountable to God than me. They get more money, they get away with more lying, and they manipulate people to their own benefit. Exactly. The churches are apostate now. Okay? Well, this is how this stuff goes down every time. Why? Because they're following the Joker. I killed the guy who, opened the vault, and now the guy who drove the truck killed me. And it's just the stupid game where they never learn, because smart people aren't joiners. Real smart people aren't joiners. Now, you need a job, and so you might join to do a job, but you don't drink the Kool-Aid. Oh, I bleed I bleed Honeywell red. No. The people like that are just like, you're a fool. You're a fool. You are trading pomp for money. And you go to work to make money, not feel like you belong. If that's why you go to work, you're a fool. Okay? Because these people do not love you, especially if it's a joint stock corporation. The goal of that joint stock corporation is to make the maximum amount of money for themselves for your work. Okay? That means the most for them, the least for you. That is their imperative for your work. That means you do the work and they get as much money as they can without you quitting. That's how corporations work. And there are people who are better at it, and they want to grow the business, they want to grow the whole, and they're going to be more generous, but they're rare. They're very rare in business, and you have to have somebody that's both smart and a Christian who thinks like that. It's hard to grow a big organization without a bunch of manipulation. Okay? So, what happens? Well, the Freemasons. The Freemasons are basically going to become the Reformed spy agency. It's not exclusively Reformed people in here, but it's mostly Reformed people in here. The biggest groups of people who are going to be part of the Freemasons are going to be Anglicans, Presbyterians, and Congregationalists. Those three. You're going to have the Freemasons in France, you're going to have the Freemasons in Germany, and you're going to have the Freemasons in Russia, which means you're going to have Catholic, Lutheran, and Orthodox Freemasons as well. Okay? But those branches, if you read this Proofs of a Conspiracy, okay, you can download the PDF and read it. It's boring, but go ahead. Those branches came from the English branches. Why? Because it started in Scotland. That's why. That's where the Freemasons come from, okay? It's not that there weren't Masonic guilds. Not like there weren't the concept of Freemasons before that. But in terms of these clubs with these rites and these rituals and then an agenda, came from Scotland. Came from the Templars. And what is their agenda? Overthrow the Pope. This is important. Overthrow the Pope and overthrow the French monarchy, okay? That's who betrayed the Templars. That's who murdered the Templars leaders and betrayed them. So that is a major part of their agenda. Overthrow the Pope and the French monarchy. Okay? Well, by the time you get to the American Revolution, so that's going to start in the 1300s, it's going to start to grow and gain a lot more attraction in the Reformation in England. And here's why. In England, when Henry Tudor leaves the Pope and starts the Anglican Church, Cromwell, who is a Puritan, he's a Calvinist, they overthrow all the monasteries. They take their property and they kill a bunch of monks, anyone who dissents, okay? So what are the monks going to do? Well, they either have to stop being monks. Remember, these guys are... You can read about this in Wycliffe in the 1300s, okay? They were known for being full of homosexuals, okay? So now you have all these homosexuals who are quote-unquote celibate monks who have all this ancient knowledge in these writings because that's one of the major things they do. This is one of the many ways they make money. They scribe books and they sell books to the rich, okay? And so if you have a Bible in England or in Europe or whatever, it's because a monk probably scribed it for you, okay? And these guys have access to all these ancient books and literature and stuff like this. Guess why? Because they're copying them and selling them for money. And they make wine and mead like Friar Tuck does, and they farm, and then they scribe books. That's how they make their money for their monastery. And of course, since they're a bunch of celibate guys who bugger each other, that money stays in the monastery, and they eventually get very rich. Those monasteries have tons of money eventually, because it doesn't go anywhere. There's no heirs, okay? Well, Cromwell knows this, and what Cromwell does, and he's the main guy who does this. This is Oliver Cromwell's grandfather. Okay, he basically makes sure all the income streams that went to the so all this monastery wealth, he takes it for Henry Tudor. Okay, then you had these things called annates, which is basically every time you have a new bishop or whatever in whatever church you're in, they would pay an annate to Rome. And that's basically like half of the income from all the tithes for the first year of that bishop goes to Rome. Well, he would convert that to go to Henry Tudor. And so what he did is he created a big, huge royal depository of money for Henry Tudor from the priesthood in the monastery. Okay? Obviously, the popes don't like this, and that's why they have Guy Fawkes and their guys try to blow up Parliament and try to overthrow Henry Tudor. Or it's not Henry Tudor, it's King James the First. This is going to be like a generation later. This King James is going to have Guy Fawkes, that's the V for Vendetta mask guy, tries to blow up Parliament. He's a Catholic spy, okay? And the monks, where did the monks go? Well, we know a lot of them got killed, but not every monk is just going to stand there and die for their buggery and their, just dissenting from the King of England. They're going to go skedaddle. And where are they going to skedaddle to? They're going to skedaddle to who's on the out with the King of England, and that is Scotland. And then during this whole time, you have John Knox and Mary Queen of Scots and all this stuff going on with the basically the Catholic versus Calvinist war in Scotland. But you also have Scottish versus English wars because the Scots always want to be independent from England. So that's where these monks are going to go. And they're going to join the Freemasons. And all of a sudden, after the Reformation, you have all these trades joining the Freemasons that are not Masons. Why? Because the Masons are growing into a massive mystery cult, aka intelligence apparatus, aka hotbed for political dissent. That's what they're becoming. And they're not, you don't really hear them start coming out in the open for about 100 years. But 100 years later, you have tons of people in the Freemasons. And they're mostly going to be Scottish Presbyterians, Puritan Congregationalists, and Anglicans. Okay? And the majority of them, the vast majority of them, are Calvinist. Okay? The Calvinists populate the Freemasons. You need to hear this when you start talking to these Calvinists and tell them what crap heaps they are, okay? The reason these people fall for Calvinism is because they're joiners. Okay? The reason they fall for mystery Gnosticism is because they are mystery Gnostics. It's the same kind of mentality that gets you to think, oh, but we'll be smarter than those other guys if we believe your bullcrap, right? Right. Okay, well, I want to be smarter than other guys. And meanwhile, they don't realize that there's someone who's really pulling the strings because they're not that smart. They're a joiner. And so the same kind of people who are going to join this right here are the same kind of people who are going to convert to Calvinism. They're dumb. Okay? Now, this is important. Why are Calvinists now going to Orthodoxy? Because when the Freemasons started mixing with the Rosicrucians convinced them that they were higher up than the Freemasons in the mysteries. They're older. They've been around since the Apostle Mark. Well, these guys have only been around since the Knights Templar. And they have stuff in their mysteries going back to the Egyptians and going back to the Temple of Solomon. But they know that it all started in the Crusades with the Templar Knights. But these guys trace their lineage back down to the Apostle Mark and the first Gnostics that were converted. Okay? What are you hearing? You're hearing the Orthodox tell the Catholics, we're the original mixers of philosophy and Christianity. Okay? The Reformers are the latecomers. They're the people who are betrayed by the Pope and they want to overthrow the Pope, and they're like, we're the people who was here before the Pope. Okay? And so where do the Calvinists go when they've been jaded by Calvinism? They go to Orthodoxy. That's idol killer. That's covenant beyond the fundamentals, whether he knows it or not. Okay? That's where these people are going. Because Orthodoxy was the OG Gnosticism, and Calvinism is just a later thread of Gnosticism. And you want to go to the OG if you want to be a joiner. If you're still a joiner, but you're not smart enough to figure out you don't need to join anything but Jesus' body, you want to join the original, right? And so what happens is the Freemasons start forming these tiers, and this is where you have the degrees of Freemasonry. And when you get to the higher degrees of Freemasonry, you get to Rosicrucianism. And they start over the next, between like the 13th century and the 17th century. By the time you get to the American Revolution era, the higher ranks of Freemasonry escalate into Rosicrucianism. So you go from Christians who are in a club of trades that are good do-gooder peoples that think about philosophy and stuff like that sometime and how to make the government and the world better, to open alchemy and sorcery. That's where it gets to when you get to the higher ranks. Open alchemy, sorcery, and we're not calling it open Satan worship yet, but we'll get there, okay? This is literally what happens. Just read through all this stuff and just put it together, okay? This is literally what happens. It's not that mysterious. So now you have tiers of Freemasonry, and the upper tiers of Freemasonry lead you to Rosicrucianism, okay? Well, the popes are not to be undone. The popes are not to be undone. The popes have been at this from the beginning, okay? They didn't get to rule all of Europe from a priestly office by being dumb, okay? And so the popes start the Jesuits, And immediately after the Reformation, they start the Jesuits, okay? And Ignatius of Loyola starts the Jesuits, and the specific aim of the Jesuits is literally just to F up Reformed thought, okay? It's just to F up the Reform's agenda, is to infiltrate, they're spies for Rome, okay? And so, the Jesuit's not going to say he's a Jesuit, okay? Well, you're going to have the above ground and the underground version of this. So you're going to have people literally joining Protestant churches as Protestant clergy who are really Jesuits, okay? Why do you think you have all these denominations now that are starting to be pro-Catholic? Why do you think the Charismatics are all starting to be pro-Catholic? Why do you think you've got Mike Bickle and IHOP and all these guys are pro-Catholic, and Rick Joyner, who's one of these guys, they're very tight, was a Knight of Malta. He's a Catholic. He's a Catholic, okay? And the Knights of Malta, they say they're a Freemason sect. No, you have to understand. This is spy versus spy stuff, okay? So you're going to have people who are Rosicrucian and they're really out for orthodoxy and they're really out for just alchemy and Satanism, okay? You're going to have Freemasons are like that too, and you're going to have Jesuits that are in the mix. And it was like this during their day. Now, this guy, Adam Weishaupt, he lives from 1748 to 1830. He is going to start the Illuminati in 1776. And immediately, in 1776, you have Adam Smith put out Wealth of Nations. He knew Ben Franklin, and Ben Franklin was a Freemason. He is talking about, in his earlier writings on the philosophy of morality, he is talking about the architect of the universe, which is the Freemason God. This is Adam Smith, okay? Thomas Paine is going to come to America and start propagandizing and writing Common Sense. Thomas Jefferson, obviously, is going to write the Declaration of Independence. And Adam Weishaupt is going to start the Illuminati, all in 1776. And they're all 1 degree removed from one person, and that's Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin was a Freemason, and he started, I don't know if he started the Freemason Lodge, but the oldest Freemason Lodge in America was, I think it was in either Boston or Philadelphia. And Ben Franklin becomes the head of that within a few years. Now, Ben Franklin, when he was a young, like a teenager, tried to invent a religion with his friends. And apparently they was like, oh, if you want to invent a religion, you'd make a really good Master Mason. And he becomes a Master Mason. And so he's known all over Europe. He's known in England. He's known in America. He knows everybody. He knows Adam Smith. We don't have a direct connection between him and Adam Weishaupt, but Thomas Jefferson mentions Adam Weishaupt by name. So it's very likely that Benjamin Franklin knew Adam Weishaupt, okay? Thomas Jefferson knows Adam Weishaupt, and he knows Ben Franklin. So the point is the maximum degrees of separation of these people is one person, and that's Ben Franklin, who is central to the American War. Ben Franklin is the guy who makes Join or Die. And Join or Die is the original serpent, and he is making this, listen, at the beginning of the 7 Years' War, okay? We're talking 15 years before the Revolutionary. The 7 Years' War is supposedly the taxes from the 7 Years' War that caused the American Revolution. Then why is he telling the colonies, Join or Die, and we're one big serpent? And then they end up with a flag that says, Don't Tread on Me, that is based on this. This is Ben Franklin. In case you don't know, the serpent is the Danite Antichrist. Okay? Ben Franklin was an evil dude. These were all evil dudes, okay? And he's running newspapers. He's a master propagandist. He's running newspapers, and he's a Master Mason, okay? Guess who else was running newspapers and a Master Mason? Joseph Stalin. This is how this goes. You want to control information. Once you have the flow of the control of information, you can figure out how to utilize that information to manipulate your way to the top and destroy all your enemies. Okay? Ben Franklin does it in a more civil way. He's mostly banging French chicks, and he's connecting other people together, and he ends up being the diplomat and one of the signatories of the American Revolution. And he's a Master Mason. He doesn't become a president, but he's on the $100 bill, y'all. So in case you don't know who a power broker is in America, he's on the $100 bill and Mount Rushmore, and he's not even a president. But guess what he was? the first U.S. Postmaster General. He created the rules for the postal system. Think about that. If you think the U.S. postal system honors, it's the most illegal thing in the world to open up somebody else's mail, right? You think they don't do that? You think it's so hard to like steam an envelope and open it up and then close it back up? They created a system where you can open other people's mail, but nobody else can open it under penalty of federal law. And who is the master of that? The same guy who's the master of this. Okay? Why? Because he understood that secret information is power. Okay? Postmaster General. He didn't want to be the president, but he's got his head on the $100 bill and he's got his head on Mount Rushmore because he was a baller. He was a master manipulative spy mason. Okay? So, there's Ben Franklin for you, and he's connected to everybody in 1776. Well, Adam Weishaupt starts the Illuminati. And Adam Weishaupt he's a Jesuit. And what happens is between about 1750 and 1776, so like a 20-year period, the Jesuits start getting banned by all the Catholic kings of Europe, and here's why. They're figuring out that the popes have been manipulating their kingdoms into wars and stuff like this for centuries, and the Jesuits are just the latest version of doing that. And so they've all got Jesuits in their land. They got Jesuits who have property holdings. A lot of them are going to have like a tax-exempt status. And they know the Jesuits are messing with their crap. Not just in their countries, but in their colonies too. Okay? And so they start banning the Jesuits. And they keep pushing on the Pope to ban the Jesuits. And by 1773, the popes finally give in to them. And they dissolve the Jesuits. Okay, in 1773. 3 years later, Adam Weishaupt starts the Illuminati. Okay? Now, Adam Weishaupt was a Jesuit until, the Pope dissolves the Jesuits in 1773. Adam Weishaupt leaves the Jesuits like 2 years before that, I think it was. Let's see, hold on. Okay, so we're already getting Jesuits getting kicked out of Europe, all over Europe. And you have Adam Weishaupt sees the writing on the wall, and he converts from Jesuit to, I think it was Lutheran or Protestant, some form of Protestant, okay? He converts to Protestantism. But yet somehow he maintains the professorate of canon law at the University of Ingolstadt. So Ingolstadt, I think, is in Germany. Or it's in Bavaria. We're back in Bavaria again. Okay, this is where the Hussites and the Czechs were, and okay, the Moravian Church started there. And so he maintains the chair for the canon law and practical philosophy at the University of Ingolstadt, which was a chair that was always run by a Jesuit. And he still has this chair, even though he supposedly left the Jesuits. Okay. And then a couple years after his conversion away from the Jesuits get banned. And 3 years after that, he starts the Illuminati. Okay? Now, this book comes out in 1787, I think. Or it could be like 1790s. Proofs of a Conspiracy. And Proofs of Conspiracy is written by basically a naval officer from Scotland who is, I think his last name is Robeson. But he is going to... he's going to traverse Freemason lodges from England to Russia. And he's figuring out what's going on with the Freemasons. And he connects with this monk from France who basically starts telling him what's going down with the Freemasons and how the Freemasons are all taken over by the Illuminati. Okay? So he's writing this book that exposes the Illuminati and how they've taken over the Freemasons, and basically they're using it as one single cult now to overthrow. Their plan is to overthrow all the monarchs and churches of Europe. Okay? and it officially becomes a organization in 3 years after the Jesuits are banned. Okay, and they're going to overthrow all the monarchs of Europe and all the churches of Europe. Okay, that's their plan. And Adam Weishaupt, in it's like 1811, 1812, something like that, he is going to publish a book where he admits doing this. And it's basically like an apology. Like he was doing this. He had been for years in the Freemasons and Rosicrucians and the philosophical reading societies, these secret organizations, and he had been manipulating them together. But what his real goal is just to have a more enlightened, rational, less superstitious society. He never meant it to go this far. Okay, well, by the time he says this, they're in the Napoleonic Wars, and this thing has not already caused the American Revolution. It's caused the French Revolution too, and the French Revolution is a bloodbath. You have the Jacobins' rise. It starts out with protests over food shortages and stuff like this in France. And then it turns into basically sacking the monarchy. Then it turns into beheading everybody. Then it turns into beheading the guys who started the revolution. The next thing you know, these madmen, these Jacobin madmen, are just out for perpetual blood, and they want to worship reason as a goddess and just get rid of the old world order. So they want to get rid of anything religious. They want to get rid of all the monarchs. They want to get rid of the Pope. And out of this revolution is going to come Napoleon. And Napoleon is basically just a corporal in the French army that rises to power and becomes a dictator. And he starts using the revolutionary rhetoric. Well, when you get to Napoleon and you see pictures of Napoleon, you're going to find Napoleon has always got one hand in his coat like this because he's a Freemason. Okay? When you put one hand in your coat like this, Stalin's going to do this. You're going to find this all over the world, okay? This is a Freemason sign. Why? The Antichrist has a withered hand. That's why. These people are openly for the Antichrist. Because what they see the Antichrist as is a return of the Roman emperor that is not under the Pope. That's what the Antichrist is to them. Okay? And of course, you have the Protestants who are starting the rumor that the Pope is the Antichrist and he needs to be overthrown. Okay? The Pope needs to be overthrown so that they can usher in the return of Christ. Okay? This is what the Puritans think. And this is what the Freemasons are out to do. And so you see how their ideas go hand in hand? The Calvinist version of Christ being, remember, we control the world, aka a 10-nation confederacy. And then once we've subdued the world for Jesus, then Jesus will come back, aka the Antichrist. Okay? They're deceived. Okay? You're talking about your Calvinist denominations have had Freemasons in and out of their churches for hundreds of years. And we know the Freemasons overthrew America, overthrew England, overthrew France, and eventually succeeded in getting rid of all the monarchs in Europe, which was exactly the Illuminati goal. Okay? And these people have been in your Calvinist churches forever, since as long as there was a Calvinism. Okay? And you think your Calvinists are smart. They are not smart people. They are deceived. They are infiltrated. They have Satanists running the helm. Okay? They're being used. They're puppets. They're useful idiots to these people. Okay? Especially your Calvinists are like, if you don't believe God is controlling everything, you're not humble. If you don't believe that thinking works from the same way math does, then you're not smart. Calvinists, you're just not dumb. That's not how logic works. So I'm punting to mystery, okay? AKA I'm an idiot and I just joined a club. I'm punting. Every time you hear somebody say, yeah, I'm a Calvinist, okay, tell me how XYZ is true then. Oh, I punt to mystery. Okay, you're an idiot then. You're the kind of person who would join a mystery cult. Because when you punt to mystery, what you're saying is, I don't know, but I was inducted into a club that if I believe this and I just say believe it, I don't need to know why it's true because I'm in the club. You're in a mystery cult. Sorry, dude. Like, I don't know what to tell you about yourself. You're an idiot. Okay? Anyways, Napoleon, Mr. Freemason, what does he do? Remember what the Freemasons' goal is. They're to get their version of the Antichrist is a guy who takes over the Holy Roman Republic, not under the authority of a pope. Remember, all the kings of Europe are under the authority of a pope. They want the original OG emperor back who gave the pope his authority, so they have a secular authority over the popes, and the popes aren't running everything anymore, because the popes have been running everything, okay, in Europe for centuries and centuries and centuries, manipulating, murdering, doing. They basically have a CIA. They've always had a CIA in Europe, okay, and now it's the Jesuits. So they ban the Jesuits. And the Jesuits just turn around and form the Illuminati, and they had been infiltrating the Masonic lodges for years. And what did they do? Napoleon ends up getting crowned by the Pope. This is how secret societies work. You think you're winning, and where does Napoleon go? He gets crowned Emperor of the Roman Republic. He subdues the Pope. He attacks the Pope's land, and then, surprise, he gets coronated by the Pope. You're back under the authority of the Pope, you idiot. This is what he does, okay? This stupid, short, stupid, dumb French man does this, okay? And what does he do? He overthrows all the... This is so great. He overthrows all the Pope's Protestant enemies. This is what he does. And then eventually, the Pope gets all the Protestant kings and Russia, the Orthodox king, to all band together to defeat Napoleon. And what happens at the end of the Napoleonic Wars? Guess who comes back? The Jesuits. Okay, you can't make this crap up. That's what happened. The Napoleonic Wars end, and the Jesuits are back. So, who won there? The answer is you had a clandestine war go on between the Orthodox spy agency and the Protestant spy agency and the Catholic spy agency, and the Catholic spy agency outplayed them. And so now what do you have? You have the Protestant kings getting overthrown and turned into democracies. Okay? And this is important. Why do you think Kennedy got shot? One of the biggest things in American history was never let a Catholic become the president. Why? Because they're under the authority of the Pope. The popes already have Catholic sees all over America. They've got their own land. They've got their own spy network. Okay? These celibate priests aren't just sitting there going, I'm just serving God in my local community. No. They have a strict hierarchy they answer to. If they want information about you, what happened in your confessional booth from one of their higher-ups, they will give it. Okay? Listen. Kennedy was part of an Irish mob family. Okay? The Italian mob, the Irish mob. Who do you think they're working for? Okay? They all answer to the Pope. They all go to the confessional booth. They all get their absolution from the Pope. And they think they're doing the greater good. And they like doing greater good because it's evil. Okay? And eventually Kennedy gets in charge. Now, I'm going to take you into the future, and I'm going to do this rather quickly, okay? The two revolutions, the American Revolution and the French Revolution, this is all going to be in my book, too. You guys got to buy my book when I'm finished writing this, because I'm putting all this into a clear format that you can read within like 350 pages, okay? You're going to have, on one side, you're going to have the Jacobins become the Marxists. Hegel is around the same time as the Napoleonic Wars in Germany. And the young Hegelians is where you get Karl Marx and Engels from about 20 years after the fall of Napoleon. Okay? This is how close all this stuff together is. You need to pay attention to these dates and timelines. It's like 20 years later, all of a sudden you have Marxism come around. Marx and Engels join the young Hegelians. I mean, it's not 20 years later, it's like 40 years later. But Marx and Engels join the young Hegelians, which is where the zeitgeist comes from. The zeitgeist is the idea of a manipulative force taking a dichotomy of history, a paradigm of left and right, and basically merging into a synthesis, and then that synthesis becomes the new right. And then they make a new left, and they merge it together, and it comes to synthesis, and that's how history evolves towards where it's been to where it's going, aka towards worshiping the Antichrist. Okay? The zeitgeist, Hegel looks at the idea of the phenomenology of the spirit, and the spirit basically being ideology. Okay? Well, he's not totally off, because the weapons of our warfare are strong and mighty against the demolition of strongholds, which are what? Vain imaginations that set themselves up against the knowledge of God. So, yes, the demonic forces move in ideology, but spirits are beings, not ideas. They are beings that propagate ideas, okay? And this comes from Hegel. And so from that, you're going to get all the Freudian psychology that eliminates the idea of demons in the world, okay? And next thing you know, everyone's talking in terms of psychological disorders, which are literally just describing behaviors that are prompted by demonic activity while never mentioning the demon. Okay? This is all part of the ruse. This is part of the great deception, is to make you think that Satan's not real. It's just an idea. And so he's going to make it all about sexual identity and all about stuff having to do with Oedipal complex, which is you really wanting to have sex with your mom and kill your dad. This is literally what Freud makes this all about. Well, he gets that from his ideas of Hegel taking away the idea of spirit and reducing it down to idea. Okay, and Hegel's a Lutheran. And then you're going to have Engels, who is the son of German pietists, and then Marx, who is the son of a grandson of a rabbi whose family converted to nominal Lutheranism. And basically he leaves that and becomes an atheist and a Satanist. Okay? And Marx and Engels are going to come up with the Communist Manifesto in Das Kapital, because Hegel was a big fan of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. And they form the exact opposite of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, which is controlled command capitalism, or controlled communism, which is basically the government controls who can buy and sell, and then total control of the markets, which is kind of what you had in mercantilism, only to the polar extreme of that, okay? And capitalism emerged as a competitive idea with mercantilism, because in mercantilism, the king could just give a monopoly to the East India Trade Company, and all of a sudden this one trade company controls the flow of oil or tea and spices and stuff like that from the East, and everybody has to buy from them and then pay these taxes to the crown, and this sucks. We could go get this stuff ourselves, and we can lower the price into a quarter of what it is, but we have to pay a high price plus the taxes. This sucks, okay? And capitalism was a response to that. The more freedom you have in the marketplace, the cheaper everything gets for everybody, and the better it gets for everybody. So that was their idea, and that's why capitalism has run amok. Communism is the opposite of that. If the government controls everything, they can make sure everything's distributed fairly. Okay, well, they take away the competition incentive, and they don't make anything cheaper, and they don't make anything better. They just make everything crap, okay? But that wasn't their purpose in starting communism, and they say that, right? If you read Das Kapital, if you read the Communist Manifesto, their purpose is not starting communism worldwide. Their purpose is starting an opposite to capitalism. So that the blending of the two, which is state-controlled socialism, which is where we're heading now, becomes the new synthesis. Okay? Democratic socialism. And what you're going to have at that democratic socialist state is basically a platform for one guy to get elected ruler of the world. I'm not going to tell you this because it's going to start out as 10 kingdoms, just like the fascists started out as 10 kings that got together, and this was their symbol. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, go around the back, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? 10 rods around an axe. And what they're saying is if we all band our power together, the executive of that is the most powerful emperor in the world. And that's where the Roman emperor came from. Okay? Well, those 10 kings are going to end up being the 10 kings that rule the world, and that axe is going to be the Antichrist. Okay? That's where they go. Global fascism. And what is global fascism? What was fascism in Nazi Germany? Here's where Nazi Germany came from, okay? Hitler was following Luther's ideas, his cultural ideas about Jewish hatred and making the enemy or something so he could gain more power for himself. the communists were basically planting bombs and starting riots and doing stuff in America and Europe and stuff like that because they were the predecessors to the Jacobins. They worship reason. They hate all religion. Okay, and Hitler shows up with his Nazis and he starts putting down these socialists. Think Antifa. Think Black Lives Matter. Imagine somebody shows up and starts bringing law and order and getting all the crackheads off your street. This is what's happening in America right now. Okay. And somebody shows up and they're going to make Germany great again, and they're going to reestablish the Roman Republic in Germany now. Because remember, it used to be the Holy Roman Emperor before the Holy Roman Emperor officially dissolved in, I want to say it's in like the 1800s. It's after the 7 Years' War. And that's when it becomes the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Okay, the Holy Roman Empire dissolves after the 7 Years' War. Okay, and then within like 10 years of that, Napoleon tries to reestablish a Holy Roman Republic. He fails. And then within, let's say, less than 100 years of his failure, Hitler tries to do it. Okay? And he fails. But Hitler was largely financed by powers from the West because these same powers from the West sent Lenin with a train full of gold to Moscow to overthrow the government of Moscow, overthrow the monarchy, because this is what these guys have been about. They're Freemasons too. And they overthrow the monarchy and install a communist dictatorship. Then they have a civil war between Lenin and Trotsky, because that's what they do. They have a bunch of people working together and they haven't betrayed each other. And then after Lenin dies, Stalin gets in control. And who's Stalin? He is Ben Franklin of Russia. He controls the newspaper. He's a Freemason. And he he's a Georgian who gets on top of the Russian government, kills all his rivals, and now he has total dictatorial control of Russia. Okay, and his job now you have Russia, and you have literally millions and millions and millions of Ukrainians die because the Russians are starving them out. They're taking all their grain and they're using that to foster up an intellectual class and an engineering class and an academic class in Moscow that's going to quickly modernize Russia. Okay, and in order to do that, they have to have a bunch of people get out and study and build factories and do all this stuff, but they need food, and so they just literally pillage the countryside of all their food. Like 20 million people die. This is what Mao's going to do in the revolution in China too. Okay, and Russia becomes has a stronger manufacturing capacity and intelligentsia and academia and stuff like that. Okay, they basically try to copy America and England really fast in Russia through just murder and taking. Okay, and what they don't have is a massive military industrial complex. They just can't really afford it, and they need some incentive. Okay, and so what do the Americans do? They fund, and this is George W. Bush. His grandfather, Prescott Bush, was one of the people who did this, okay? They fund the rise of Hitler in Nazi Germany. They help them through the Bank of International Settlements, which is a Swiss bank that would operate in total independence from the rest of the world. And the Swiss would basically do business with the Nazis. And the Nazis would rise to power, and they would become this monstrosity of a evil dictatorship that's about to crush and destroy everything. And that would allow the Americans to give this would incentivize the Americans over here, who are all Freemasons too. Okay, these stupid Freemason presidents and congressmen and stuff like that, to say we need to give tons of weapons and manufacturing capacity to Soviet Russia to help us stop the Germans. Because if we don't, we're going to have to go over there and stop the Germans ourselves. And so we give tons of weapons to China. They become communists. Tons of weapons to Russia, and they become a communist powerhouse of a military state. And then we give tons of weapons to England, and they stay capitalist. And what are we doing? The Freemasons are dividing the whole world between communists and capitalists, and that becomes the Cold War. And throughout the Cold War, after World War II, over the next 50 years, the entire world becomes in two camps. And that's why you have the term Third World come about, okay? Third World means you're either in the American camp, which is the capitalist camp, or in the Russian camp, which is the communist camp. And if you're in neither, you're Third World, and you're a country that's so poor, we're basically just pillaging your stuff, okay? And so basically large parts of Latin America were considered third world countries. Banana republics were considered third world countries, which was basically, puppet dictator somewhere. And then Africa was considered third world countries. And then the Middle East was largely considered third world until we realized they have a ton of oil and access to power. And all the manipulations that have gone on in geopolitical history since the Cold War are literally Hegel's dialectic playing out in real time, being controlled by Freemasons. Okay? And the Freemasons, like I said, they're mixed now with Rosicrucians and Jesuits, and there's not really a clear who's in control here. Now, I'm sure somebody knows. I'm sure it's documented somewhere, but I'm not going to speculate on that. But the point is they're all driving towards the arrival of the Antichrist. They rival over who's going to have more power when it happens, but that's the goal. They want to see the Roman Republic come back as a secular state with the Pope not being the strongest person in it, because the Pope has been the strongest person in the Roman Empire since the fall of Constantinople. Okay? And they want to see a secular emperor come back who's going to take over the whole thing. Well, the only person who can do that is somebody who's never submitted to Catholicism and who can take over the Roman Empire by force, and that's the Ottomans. That's the Turks. Because they hold the Constantinople, the seat of Roman power. They have never been Christians. They're Muslims. And if they can enforce their will over Europe, they have the legitimate Holy Roman Empire back. Okay? So wait for Turkey being central to the resolution of World War III. Just wait for them to arise and wait for that start coming up. All of a sudden, Turks start saying stuff that seems very reasonable. They're already talking to Elon Musk. They're talking to Ben Salman. They are urging reasonableness between the Jews and the Palestinians. Just wait for them to increasingly become like a more neutral, more reasonable sounding power broker in the Middle East. And then when America and Russia fall, they're going to be up. Okay? But this is the Freemasons, the Illuminati. This is what's been going on, okay? And what you've had here, remember, you've had the French try to have their turn at having the Roman Empire under them. You've had the English try to do it with the Norman Kingdom. You've had the Germans try to do it with Nazi Germany, and you've had two powers never really try to do it. You've kind of had America do it with NATO, kind of, but not really, because we haven't really tried to control the whole thing. But we've largely controlled NATO. And then you have one power that's never really had their shot, and that's Russia. Because remember, Russia married in not just with the Mongols, but they married in with the Byzantines. And they have rights to Constantinople. And that's what they're doing right now with trying to invade the Middle East. That's the big plan. They're banding together with the Muslims, and they're trying to invade the Middle East because they want Constantinople. And that's this Gog-Magog war. Okay? So it's all going to tie together, but everyone is just trying to revive the Roman Empire. That's always what's happening. That's always the goal. And the Freemasons, just think of the Freemasons as the Protestant version of the secret mystery cult that's trying to do that. But you need to understand this. Listen, when you talk to Calvinists, do you realize how many Calvinists have been Freemasons? Do you realize how many Freemasons have been Calvinists? Get them thinking about that. This has always been a secret spy organization. The Calvinists have always infiltrated and overthrown churches. You find the earliest Baptists in America and North Carolina were all free will, free grace Baptists. And then when the Calvinists came out of the Puritans, when the Puritans rejected the born-again experience, you have the Calvinists go over to the Baptist churches and immediately start infiltrating them. Okay? Calvinists always infiltrate and take over other churches because deep down inside, they're mystery cultists and mercenaries. That's how they were. That's how they always were. And so you want to understand that, like, it's in their nature, it's in their cultural history and their cultural ethos to infiltrate, lie, spy, overthrow, take over. That's what they do. That's what they did in Europe. That's what they did in America, and they want to do it again. That is Christendom 2.0. Run from this. Run from this. Okay? You guys be blessed by this. Stay away from conspiracy theories, you guys. I'm giving you a lot of information that is tied in with this stuff, but don't make that a focus of your knowledge pursuit. Don't make that a focus of your study. You need to study the Bible. Okay? Know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Not know the lie. Okay, I had a friend tell me years ago when I was into this stuff. He said, Aaron, you have more interest in what Satan is doing than what God is doing. It was true. I did. I didn't see it. I couldn't see it. All I knew was something was wrong when nobody was listening. And I kept digging further and further. And I was getting so depressed and demonized from this stuff. Don't study. Listen, don't study this stuff. Now, here's the problem. I probably have less than 5 videos out of my 165 videos that even talk about conspiracy theory related stuff, okay? But I got people who get on my channel all the time and they say, I like your channel because of your conspiratorial content. And I'm sitting here going, what the frick are you talking about? This is one of the things these conspiracy theorists have succeeded in doing. Remember, the Catholics, the Protestant, and the Orthodox are all amillennial, okay? And one of the things that happened after the Reformation is, remember how all the reformers were saying that the Pope is the Antichrist, okay? Well, the truth is the Antichrist is supposed to be a Danite Jew, and that's in Hippolytus and Irenaeus. And these Jesuits, one of them is Lacunza, and the other one is, I forget his name. But these guys basically start propagating these ideas, again, that it's a Danite. It's going to happen, after in Daniel's 70th week and all this stuff, which the modern dispensationalists get too. And it's what they're saying is true. The reason they did this is to show how bad the reformers are at studying prophecy and scholarship related to prophecy. These books that did this, these Jesuit books that did this was during the period when the Jesuits were banned. The popes banned these books because they are truth. They are true eschatology, and the popes hold to amillennialism too. Popes, the Orthodox, and the Reformed all hold to amillennialism. Okay? Amillennialism says that we're going to take over the world for Jesus and then he's going to come back. That's basically it. Okay? True biblical prophecy says the world is going to become entirely apostate and then Jesus is going to come back. That's what the Bible says. Okay? They're opposites. But all three of them, they're the three-headed monster. Okay? This is Christendom. Okay? King Ghidorah, this is Christendom for you. Right here, okay? Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox. They're the same thing, you guys. They're all amillennial. They're all serving the rise of the Antichrist. They're all anti-Jewish. They're all anti-Bible. They're all Gnostic, okay? They're just 3 heads in the same dragon. This is Christendom. It's the 3 loaves of leaven that the woman puts leaven in until the whole is leaven. The whole is leaven, but it has 3 loaves. Okay? It's kind of like God is 1, but he's 3. Well, Christendom is a false God that is 1, but 3. Okay? Christendom is Antichrist. And these guys are all going to push you towards the theology that is going to end up with, you said this would be when Jesus is here, and you're staring at the Antichrist. Don't fall for this stuff, okay? But they've gotten so successful in their propaganda that when I put out eschatology, biblical prophecy, and explaining what the Bible says, they think I'm talking about this. That's part of their propaganda. That conspiracy theories and biblical eschatology are one and the same. And that's why after the Reformation, when people started looking in terms of futurist biblical eschatology again and the idea of an Antichrist, you immediately start coming out with all these date setters. It doesn't happen once. You have the Seventh-day Adventists in 1844. You have the Irvingites in the early 1800s. But this starts in the 1600s. It starts immediately after the Reformation. You start having these date setters come out, and they start coming out with these dumb prophecies like how the 1260 years in Daniel is, or 1260 days is 1260 years, how the 2300 days in Daniel 8 is 2300 years, and they start making all these theories which line up with the Freemasons and line up with the Napoleonic Wars. Okay, and there are these date setting things about how now we're entering into the New World Order and the millennium. Okay? And that's why you have cults that are going to pop out, like the Shakers, who think we're in the millennium, so they stop getting married. Okay? And the Latter-day Saints, which become the Mormons, which are a Freemason cult. And the Jehovah's Witnesses, which are a cult. They're all based in date setters. And the Adventists, which are basically a Judaizer cult. Okay? All these cults popping up based on lies that were based on the Counter-Reformation propaganda that is based on date setting. And you need to get rid of the date setting stuff. I'm going to have a video that I'm going to pop out after this that is going to explain all the date setting stuff in the most simple terms so you can understand the only dates that you need to know in terms of the big picture. Okay? There's only a couple of them. But this is everything you need to know about your Illuminati, your Rosicrucians, your Freemasons. Don't dig deeper than this, okay? I hope I made this make kind of political and geopolitical and religious common sense to you. Don't try to get deeper than this, okay? Don't try to put all the pieces together and figure out how the conspiracy is organized. What you need to know is you have a bunch of people joining clubs that are ruled ultimately by Satan. That's all you need to know, okay? Don't chase this rabbit. Put it down. Get to know the Word of God, okay? Be blessed by this. Batman out. Peace.
Peace, I'm out. I'm Batman.